Vampire the Masquerade. If you're like me, then you were first introduced to this entire series through Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, a 2004 dark urban fantasy RPG developed by Troika Games that oozed that 90s/early 2000s goth aesthetic. Think Blade, think The Craft, Dracula, The Crow, and Vampire in Brooklyn. If you like the feel of those movies, then you might have liked Bloodlines. In the game, you play as a fledgling vampire, or kindred as they call themselves in universe, of 7 different choosable kindred clans from the Camarilla, who was embraced without consent and was set up to be unfairly executed by said Camarilla until a member of the Anarch speaks out for you, calling it bullshit. Because it is. You didn't ask to be turned, obviously. You just came for some dick. Throughout the entire game, you're essentially a patsy to everyone who's even a day older than you, which is the appeal of Vampire the Masquerade in general. It's kind of like Game of Thrones, but with vampires, and a werewolf, and a shark man, and Quajin, and ghosts. Maybe not the ghosts. They don't really like talking, they just like throwing crap. This bitch empty! If you're not like me, then you discovered it through other ways, one of which being another RPG game developed by Nihilistic Games called Vampire the Masquerade Redemption. In it, you play as Christoph, a soldier of God, who gets turned into a Brujah vampire and has to protect his touchstone Aneska, a woman of God, from all types of evil, as she's desperately trying to find a cure to Christoph's vampirism out of love. They're so cute. There's also the most obvious way of discovering Vampire the Masquerade being the tabletop RPG itself. Vampire the Masquerade is one of the game titles within the World of Darkness universe. It shares its universe with the likes of Werewolf the Apocalypse, Mage the Awakening, Wraith the Oblivion, and many others. Vampire the Masquerade is just one part of this massive pool of monsters and magic. In more recent years, I think it's safe to say that the World of Darkness is seeing a sort of Renaissance-like resurgence of content, with Vampire the Masquerade leading the charge, and the other titles will no doubt soon be following behind, being updated in ways that makes the gameplay and their own sub-universes a bit more accessible to everyone. In terms of video games, there was the long-awaited announcement for the sequel to Bloodlines 2 being published by Paradox Games. While of course this is the main dish a lot of fans are waiting for, there's a lot of appetizers in between. Coteries of New York was released back in 2019, and its standalone DLC, Shadows of New York, followed a year later, both developed by Draw Distance Games. There was also the announcement of Swan Song, developed by Big Bad Wolf. We also have a trilogy of text-based adventure games through Choice of Games, one of which was already released, and that was Night Road, written by Kyle Marquis, with 2 others set to be released later this summer, Out for Blood and Parliament of Knives. There's also one I'm super excited for, and that is Blood Hunt, which is basically a Vampire the Masquerade Battle Royale. And yes, it's as fun as it sounds. Stepping out of the realm of video games, the tabletop RPG has been receiving many updates concerning the lore, properly bringing fans into the modern nights with information like how the Second Inquisition are in power, the internet becoming practically illegal and dangerous in kindred society, the birth of the Hecata, and the Lasombra joining the Camarilla after being a Sabbat staple for so long. There are also a few board games coming along, such as Vampire the Masquerade Chapters, Rivals, Heritage, Blood Feud, Vendetta, and Eternal Struggle. Holy hell, that's a lot. That's not even going into a lot of the shows surrounding Vampire the Masquerade tabletop gameplay. There's LA by Night, Seattle by Night, Vampires of Pittsburgh, Blood on the Grand Strand, Vain Pursuit, Stitch of Fate, and so many others. A lot of elements play into what people love about the World of Darkness, and especially Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. It's a story about your own personal horrors, and the horrors you might face in the night. You're not particularly powerful, you're just a cog in a machine trying to survive another night. Even if you're someone high up, you're still not as powerful as you think you are. Sure, you're more powerful than some day-old fledgling, but you're still meant to be at the beck and call of a city's prince, or baron, or bishop. In modern nights, that powerlessness is even heavier, as even the Second Inquisition are now backed by the government. No matter what clan runs through your veins, no matter what sect you run with, no matter who your sire is, no matter how much power you hold as a vampire, you're still just trying to survive, and that's the fun of it. Another fun aspect of Vampire the Masquerades are the clans. See, I was gonna get to that point at some point. The clans essentially function the same way as the Hogwarts houses or the Four Nations of the Avatar series. No, not that one, the good one.
Clans are just bloodlines, you know, a common root shared and passed on from sire to child. You should know all you can about the different sides. It's war out there, after all.
The clans of Vampire the Masquerade are a culmination of cultures, politics, and outlooks. As such, you're guaranteed to find a clan that suits you well, often based on your style alone, and then you realize you might relate to their compulsion a little too much. If you're the loner type more attuned with your wild side, there's the Gangrel. Are you an artsy type who likes attention and being the life of the party? Then there's the Toreador. Like having power over others? You might like the Ventrue or the Lasombra. Are you an eccentric freaking creep? You might like the Tzimisce, and so on and so on. I thought it'd be fun as a series to take characters from a plethora of other series and sort them into some of the playable clans, with the exception of a few. I'll be going over all the clans included so that I can lay some groundwork so some folks can know what I'm essentially looking for when it comes to sorting characters. Some characters might just fit into more than one clan, and that's totally fine. We should, though, talk about the two clans that are gonna be left out. Firstly, the Thin Bloods. Depending on who you ask in universe, the Thin Bloods are their own clan. Thin Bloods are basically vampires who are more in touch with their mortal side. And by that I mean that they're weaker than most vampires. Some see them as an omen, some see them as a joke. The reason I'm not going to be using them for this series is because Thin Bloods are not completely their own clan, as a lot of them are sired by kindreds of other clans. While they're weaker, they still can carry the characteristics of the clan they were sired into. Malkavian Thin Bloods might still be able to see into the future, much like full-blooded Malkavians. And Nosferatu Thin Bloods will still be physically altered in some way, much like normal Nosferatu. They're their own thing, but they're also not. Speaking of, next is the Kaitif. The Kaitif are in a similar boat. They may be as strong as normal kindred, but they are clanless and scattered. As such, there's not really a general culture to them that would make sorting characters into them easy. Now, with those guys out of the way, allow me to go over the clans I will be covering. Because there are a lot of clans, some of the series I'll be covering may not have that many characters, and in a case like that, I probably just won't mention the clan in the video. I'll even let you know at the beginning of the video which clans are going to be involved. Because I want to prevent myself from rambling, these are going to be summaries. If you do want to know more about these clans in their fullness, there are plenty of sources. One obviously being the rulebooks, but more accessible information being Outstar and Huddy's YouTube channels, as well as many other sources that explain these clans in their own way. With that out of the way, let me introduce to you the clans of the Masquerade.
I don't want peace. I want problems, always!
Have you ever looked around a quiet room full of people and said, "This is too peaceful"?
I can fix that.
You might be a Brujah. The Brujah are a clan that are constantly in a rage against the machine mood. What is the machine? It differs depending on the Brujah. Within the world of darkness, name a protest or riot, and there's a chance that a Brujah helped instigate that. Ask a Brujah, they'll tell you that they're frontline warriors for change. Ask a Brujah hater, and they'll tell you they're nothing but angry wrecking balls. And to be honest, both can be true. Regardless of who you believe more, the fact is that Brujahs are known for their tempers and their disdain for being stuffed into what they feel are oppressive boxes.
Now, if there's one thing you learn before leaving this place, it's that we, even the weakest among us, are better than the best of them.
2 words: pompous and in charge. The Ventrue like to be in charge, and if they're not in charge, they will be by the end of the week. If you had to compare them to a Hogwarts house, they're no doubt the Slytherins of kindred society. Some look at them as tyrannical, while others see them as a clan that knows how to get the job done. Much like the Brujah, both can pretty much be true, and at the end of the day, when it comes to the Ventrue, failure is not an option, because one Ventrue's failure reflects on everyone, especially other Ventrues.
Escucha las palabras de las brujas, los secretos escondidos en la noche, los antiguos dioses invocados.
If the clans had house words, their Tremeres would be knowledge is power. They live and breathe that phrase, hungering to unlock the next stage of evolution and perfect their existence both mentally and biologically. Again, with another Hogwarts house comparison, the Tremere would be Ravenclaws, because the pursuit of learning will always triumph over the pursuit of power. Hell, a Tremere might only come into power in order to gain access to information that's closed off. Ask the other clans, they'll tell you not to trust a lot of kindred, but they'll especially tell you not to trust the Tremere. Even other Tremeres will tell you not to trust the Tremere.
I'm not memorizing the multiplication table. I have a calculator, and my ass is fat.
For Toreadors, it's all about the aesthetic and the vibes. What type of vibes? What type of aesthetic? Well, it varies. Surface-wise, Toreadors can come off as the most human-looking of all the clans, but underneath can be a much different story. This clan of kindred are very much known for letting their desires rule them whenever that inspiration hits them, be they common like art and music to the more depraved like murder and torture.
Breaking news. I have gotten the evidence.
No matter how much a clan may hate having to look at and smell the Nosferatu, their place is always secured, as you can't go far without the intel of a Nosferatu. While, depending on how they look, they might not be able to walk freely about, there's an advantage to having to live life in the shadows. The Nos are essentially the Gretchen Wieners of kindred society. They know everyone and everything, and if they don't, they will by the end of the night. However, they're not really instigators. They just prefer to know who or what is happening on the chessboard.
Something is broken and it's not your fault.
I know, I'm scared too.
Malkavians can often be regarded as the foolish jesters of kindred society, but in reality, the children of Malkov are just perceptive in a way that's underappreciated. If everyone decides to play a song and dance of not saying what they mean, speaking under their breath, and dancing around the truth, then the Malkavians will also play that game, just in a dramatic and camp fashion that can make them look like fools to the other clans. It's all just a show at the end of the day. In the words of X, the elephant doesn't matter.
Wear makeup under the eyes? Is that what you want, Dad? You know I got the pipes!
The Gangrels are mostly known for their solitary nature and are defined by their fighting spirit, much like the Brujah. The main difference being that the Gangrel have a tendency to hype up those that are doing their best to survive another day, or a night. They're wandering souls who despise being held down, whether it's by a prison or societal expectations. They have a strong connection to nature and often hold the folktales of history in high regard.
Thank you, guys. I will never be able to repay you for the kindness you've shown me in here. Besties for life, I say.
Oberlin, your bail's been posted.
Later, losers.
While the Ventrue want to be kings, the Lasombra want to be the people controlling the kings, from the shadows. Their very being is all about ruthlessness and orchestrating the fall of their enemies, or their potential clanmates. The Lasombra can have a Darwinist way of thinking. They'll do anything to survive, whether their status or life is on the line. If they have to offer up a loved one on a silver platter, they'll do it in a heartbeat. To the Lasombra, the worthy deserve to rule, and the weak deserve to be ruled over. There are no exceptions.
You want penis enlargement pills?
All the ministry wants is for people to get down with the sickness. They're all about swaying people to their causes through the guise of liberating them. Your cult detector may be going off, but they can assure you there's no ulterior motive when it comes to joining them. They're positive that their beliefs are the way to go, but they won't force you. They'll simply shape themselves however generally acceptable in order to lure in curiosity seekers. As they say, better to catch bees with honey.
Hey, a letter! I have friends! Oh, that's not a letter, that's a threat.
Formerly presumed extinct, the Salubri are unicorns, easily identified by their third eye. They're also defined by their empathy and their tendency to teach and heal, which ultimately leads to them passing the torch on to their childer. Salubri know that they're not meant for long lives, but seemingly have no issue with that. They probably would be even better with it if it weren't other kindred trying to kill them for their blood sometimes.
We're going on a trip in our favorite piece of shit, doing 95! We're gonna fucking die!
Much like the Gangrel, the Ravnos are wanderers. However, unlike the Gangrel, this is not by choice. I will not elaborate on that. The Ravnos are troublemakers, and sometimes they just can't help starting crap. They're very much like many trickster icons, be it through pop culture and a plethora of religions. But to retaliate against the Ravnos could prove to be the worst idea, as no matter how solitary they could be in their wandering, the moment one Ravnos is screwed with, others will promptly come over and cause your life hell. So you might want to be the bigger person on this one.
Hey, check out my new suit, and my new hair, and my new skin!
The main philosophy of the Tzimisce is that if something isn't broken, yes it is. It looks too normal, we can rebuild it to look freaking hideous. Jesus Christ, what is wrong with them? Why is that something you can do? How did you figure out that you can do that? Like mad scientists, Tzimisce are fond of taking things, body parts, apart and molding them into something they deem beautiful. But don't let literally everything I just said fool you. This clan has an impeccable sense of manners and hospitality that will make you question if you should overlook the weird crap they get up to. It's such a contrast with them, which makes the Tzimisce always interesting to interact with.
I'm the law! I'm the law!
The Banu Haqim are a clan of discipline and are powered by their faith. When it comes to the clan members of the Banu Haqim, their ranks are filled with those who believe in punishing the wrong and standing by righteous justice. They honored the codes of either their clan or their religion or even their own personal mantra. And I'm trying very hard not to make a corny Batman joke, and it hurts.
But he's ugly, and I'm glad he's dead, 'cause there was no fucking candle in his pumpkin head.
The Hecata are the newest kids on the block, coming from a culmination of different clans that love to dance with death. When they're not figuring out new ways to raise the dead, they act as mercenary of sorts for those that can afford their services. Cause who doesn't want necromancers on their payrolls? While the Hecata don't really have a more well-defined and understood culture much like the other clans, they could be viewed as a much more morbid version of the Tremere. I know some Hecata might not like to hear that, but it must be said. The main difference being their compulsion. While the Tremere want perfection in order to evolve into a more perfect being, the Hecata want to understand death at a deeper level. Not just the death of kindred, but others around them. And there it is, 14 clans all ready to have new members whether they like it or not. I had many ideas for different series to use as a means, and using the Vampire the Masquerade clans screamed interesting to me, because when it comes to things like the Hogwarts houses or the 4 nations of the Avatar universe, there's the underlying message of everyone can be a hero no matter what your background or personality is. But with clans, as a vampire, you're a monster. There's no sugarcoating it. Often the goal for some players and their characters is to maintain their humanity, while others indulge in their character's monstrous nature. So at the end of the day, all kindred are monsters. It's just about how much of a monster are you. So using this as a tool is going to be fun for a lot of characters that are defined by their heroism. Anyways, I've been Hexley, and I'll see you soon. Later.